Welcome to the Haunted Quill.
Vault 1019 was nestled deep within the mountain, sealed tight against the destruction of the Great War. The hum of machines and recycled air created a comforting rhythm of life underground. Though safe from the wasteland, the steel walls often felt like a prison. Residents clung to traditions to keep hope alive in their artificial world. The Hearth was the heart of the vault, a cozy gathering place designed to feel like home. The holographic fireplace glowed warmly, casting flickering light on soft chairs and wooden bookshelves. Potted plants, nurtured in hydroponics, brought life to the room's artificial charm. It became a sanctuary where the community gathered to share stories and dreams. Overseer Margaret Elwood, with her wise smile and soft voice, kept the storytelling tradition alive. She believed stories were a way to connect the past with the present, keeping memories alive. Through tales, we light the dark corners of our minds, she often said to the gathered residents. Her words gave comfort, inspiring even the youngest to listen and dream. Jonah, a curious boy with big, bright eyes, was the Hearth's most devoted listener. He loved tales of the old world, the vast cities, endless oceans, and unspoiled skies. But his favorite story was of the Lantern Wanderer, a mysterious figure in the wasteland. Jonah often imagined himself walking beside the Wanderer, exploring forgotten ruins and seeking adventure. The Lantern Wanderer was said to carry a glowing lantern, its light holding secrets of the past. Legends told that its beam revealed glimpses of the world before the bombs fell: green fields, bustling streets, and endless blue skies. Some said the lantern could guide lost souls to safety, while others believed it led wanderers to their destiny. Jonah believed the Wanderer was real, a hero waiting to be found. One evening, during a storytelling session, Jonah asked, "Do you think the Wanderer might ever come here?" His voice echoed in the cozy hearth as the adults smiled at his eagerness. Overseer Margaret replied, "The Wanderer's light can find anyone, even in the deepest of vaults." That night, Jonah lay awake, dreaming of the lantern's glow lighting his way. He listened for the light slowly within throughout the night, and slept with. Days in Vault 119 passed in routine, but Jonah's mind often wandered to the surface. He imagined the sound of wind rushing through trees, the scent of rain-soaked earth, and the warmth of the sun. Though he had never seen these things, the stories made them feel real. He longed to experience them, even if just for a moment. One afternoon, Jonah sat by the hydroponic garden, flipping through an old book about pre-war life. It had faded photographs of cities bustling with people, cars, and towering buildings. He stared at the images, wondering how such a vibrant world could be lost. Maybe the Wanderers saw all this, he whispered to himself, tracing the pages. Jonah's grandmother, a gentle woman with silvery hair, often shared stories she had heard from her own parents. "The Lantern Wanderer isn't just a guide," she told him once, her voice hushed. "The lantern's light reveals what you need most, whether it's the way forward or the truth hidden within." Jonah's heart raced at the thought of such magic. The Hearth gatherings grew quieter as the years passed, with fewer residents attending. Many had grown weary of stories and the promises of a brighter future. But Jonah never missed a night, sitting cross-legged near the holographic fire. The stories gave him something to hold on to, a hope that one day the vault's door would open and the outside world would welcome them. One evening, a storyteller spoke of a time long before the war, when humanity looked to the stars. "We reached beyond our planet, dreaming of new worlds," she said, her voice carrying through the hearth. Jonah pictured rockets soaring into space, wondering if the Wanderer's lantern could shine even among the stars. The Lantern Wanderer's story often changed depending on who told it, but one detail remained constant. The lantern's glow never faltered. No storm, no shadow, No ruin could extinguish its light. Jonah imagined it cutting through the wasteland's darkness, revealing secrets hidden in the rubble. Maybe it could lead us to a new world, he thought, and he rose as though by magic. Sitting up, as Jonah grew older, his dreams of the outside world only intensified. He began sketching maps of the surface based on the fragmented tales he had heard. The maps were filled with imagined forests, rivers, and cities, all connected by trails of light. When I leave the vault, I'll find the Wanderer, he told himself confidently. The overseer, noticing Jonah's curiosity, gifted him a small pre-war lantern one day. It was old and battered, but still emitted a soft, comforting glow. "This is for your dreams," she said, her voice kind. "Keep its light alive, no matter where it takes you." Jonah treasured the lantern, pretending it was the same one the Wanderer carried. Late at night, Jonah would sit by the dim glow of his lantern, imagining it guiding him through abandoned cities and over crumbling highways. He pictured himself discovering lost treasures, meeting other survivors, and bringing hope to the world above. Though he'd never seen the wasteland, he felt like he belonged to it somehow. One stormy night, the vault's lights flickered, plunging the halls into brief moments of darkness. Jonah clutched his lantern tightly, its glow steady, even as the power wavered. In the quiet, he whispered, "Maybe this is what the Wanderer feels." Walking alone, with only the lantern's light to guide them. As the years passed, Jonah became one of the vault's storytellers, sharing tales with younger residents in the Hearth. His stories always began with the lantern wanderer, roaming the wasteland, searching for something unknown. He added new details, how the lantern's glow changed colors, or how it hummed softly when danger was near. Storytellers like Teresa Jonah remembered things differently and missed little explanations. How the lantern wanderer roamed the wasteland searching for something unknown, he added new details, how the lantern's glow changed colors, or how it hummed softly when danger was near. One day, while helping in the vault's archives, Jonah discovered a tattered map labeled Surface Access Points. It showed locations of old Vault-Tec maintenance hatches leading to the surface. Though most were marked inaccessible, one was circled in red, with the words, "Emergency use only." Jonah's heart raced as he stared at the map. Jonah couldn't stop thinking about the map and the possibility of reaching the surface. He began sneaking back to the archives, studying every detail, committing it to memory. If the Wanderer can survive out there, so can I, he thought, his determination growing stronger each day. One evening, during story time in the Hearth, Jonah hinted at his dreams of leaving the vault. "What if the Wanderer is waiting for someone to join them?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. The older residents chuckled, but Overseer Margaret gave him a knowing smile, as though she understood his longing. The following day, Jonah found a quiet moment in the archives and carefully removed the map he had been studying. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the route leading to the surface hatch. It was a forbidden place, a reminder of the past. But to Jonah, it seemed like a lifeline. "If I can get there, maybe I can find the Wanderer," he whispered to himself, the weight of the decision sinking in. Late that night, Jonah returned to the Hearth and sat in his usual spot, staring into the flickering holographic fire. He imagined himself walking through the wasteland, the lantern's glow lighting his way. The warmth of the fire mirrored the light in his mind, and for a moment, he felt like the Wanderer was real. Not just a story, but a guide waiting for him. The next week, Jonah shared his findings with a few of his closest friends. He spoke excitedly about the surface hatch, his voice filled with anticipation. "What if it's the key to everything?" he asked. Some of his friends were skeptical, but others, who had long shared his dreams of adventure, listened intently, their eyes wide with hope. Jonah spent the next few days preparing for the journey, though he didn't share his plan with the overseer. He gathered supplies, water, a few preserved food rations, and his prized lantern. He wondered if it could truly light his way, as the story suggested, or if it was just a symbol of his desire for something more. Still, it was the only thing he had that felt real. On the night Jonah planned to leave, the vault was quieter than usual. The residents were asleep, unaware of his intentions. He slipped into the hearth one last time, standing by the holographic fire. He whispered to the room, "I'll be back someday, and when I return, I'll bring stories of the world above." With that, he turned off the light and headed toward the access hatch. Jonah's heart raced as he navigated the dark corridors of the vault, the familiar sounds of footsteps and machines eerily absent in the silence of the night. The map led him to a forgotten door behind a maintenance room, covered in dust and cobwebs. His hand shook as he entered the code, unlocking the rusted metal door. Beyond the door, a narrow passage led to the emergency hatch. Jonah could feel the cold air seeping through the cracks in the walls, a sign that the surface was close. His breath quickened, not out of fear, but out of excitement. He thought of the Lantern Wanderer, the mysterious figure who had lived in stories for so long, and wondered if he, too, had once walked this path. The hatch creaked open, revealing a narrow shaft leading upward. Jonah paused, glancing back at the vault, unsure if he should turn back. But his resolve hardened, and he began his ascent, the lantern glowing softly in his hand. Each step upward felt like a step closer to a dream he'd nurtured for years. After what felt like hours, Jonah finally reached the surface hatch. His heart pounded in his chest as he slowly pushed the heavy door open, revealing a world he had only seen in stories. Desolate, yet strangely beautiful. The sky, though marred by the scars of nuclear fallout, stretched wide above him, with a pale light filtering through the clouds. Jonah stepped into the wasteland, his lantern shining brightly in the murky air. As he walked across the cracked earth, the wind whispered through the ruins, and Jonah felt an overwhelming sense of awe. This was the world he had dreamed of. Empty, haunting, but full of possibility. The lantern flickered in his hand, casting strange shadows on the broken landscape, as if guiding him toward an unknown destination. Jonah wandered for hours, his eyes searching the horizon for signs of life, for the Lantern Wanderer. He thought of the stories, how the Wanderer would never give up, how they always kept moving forward. Jonah clutched his lantern tighter, determined to follow in their footsteps. He wasn't just looking for a place, he was looking for a purpose. As night fell, the temperature dropped, and Jonah found shelter in the remnants of an old building. The lantern's light flickered softly in the dark, offering a small measure of comfort. He wrapped himself in his jacket, settling down on the cracked floor, his thoughts racing with the possibility of what tomorrow might bring. The next morning, Jonah resumed his journey, following what appeared to be a faint trail of light in the distance. It was as though the lantern was guiding him, just like the Wanderer had done for so many in the stories. With each step, Jonah felt a little less afraid of the wasteland, as if the stories had given him the strength to keep moving forward. Jonah continued his travels, meeting other survivors along the way, each one with their own stories of survival and loss. Some spoke of finding hope in the darkness, while others had given up entirely. Yet Jonah, with his lantern always by his side, never lost sight of the stories he had heard in the Hearth. One day, while exploring the remnants of an old city, Jonah found a broken road sign, barely visible among the debris. It read, "Welcome to New Haven." The name struck a chord with him, reminding him of the stories of hope that had been passed down in Vault 1019. Was it possible? Could this be the beginning of something new? Jonah ventured further into the city, his lantern casting eerie shadows on the ruins. He couldn't help but wonder if the Lantern Wanderer had once walked these very streets. What had happened to them? Were they still out there, carrying the light? Jonah knew that the journey was far from over. His own story was just beginning. Days turned into weeks as Jonah continued to wander the wasteland, his hope undiminished. He visited crumbling towns, scavenged what he could, and met more survivors, each with their own tale of survival. But no matter where he went, he never stopped searching for the one thing that had kept him going: the glow of the lantern. The glow of the lantern. One evening, as Jonah sat atop a hill overlooking the ruined remnants of a city, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. In the distance, he spotted a faint, glowing light, just like the one in the stories. It wasn't a mirage, he realized. It was real. He stood up, heart pounding, and began to run toward the light, feeling a surge of excitement and wonder. As Jonah approached, the light grew brighter, revealing a figure standing in the midst of the ruins. The figure held a lantern, just like his own. For a moment, Jonah stood frozen, unsure if he was dreaming or if this was truly the Wanderer. The figure turned slowly, and in that instant, Jonah knew. This was no coincidence. He had found them. The Lantern Wanderer, their face hidden by a hood, stepped forward and spoke in a calm, melodic voice. "You've come far, young traveler. The light you seek has always been within you." Jonah's heart raced as he realized the truth of the words. The journey he had taken, the lantern he carried, had all led him here. For the light was not just about survival. It was about finding purpose and hope in the darkest of places. The Lantern Wanderers stepped closer, their lantern flickering softly in the dark wasteland, illuminating the crumbling buildings around them. Jonah felt a strange calm settle in his chest, as if the fear he'd carried for so long had suddenly evaporated. "You've been searching for answers," the Wanderer continued, "but the truth isn't something you find, it's something you become." Jonah's mind raced, trying to comprehend the words. Was he meant to become the next Wanderer? "I've seen the stories," Jonah said, his voice filled with awe and wonder. "I've heard the legends of your lantern, how it guides lost souls and shows the past. Is it real?" The Wanderer nodded slowly, their hood casting a shadow over their face. "It's real," they replied, "but the lantern isn't just a guide. It's a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest places, there is always light if you choose to see it." Jonah's heart swelled with understanding. The stories weren't just about the past. They were about the present, about the choices they made every day. As the Wanderer spoke, Jonah felt a connection to something far greater than himself. It wasn't just the lantern that connected them. It was the belief in something better, something worth striving for. The Wanderer's presence was calming, like a steady hand in the storm. "You've carried the light well," the Wanderers said with a hint of pride in their voice. "But there is still much to learn, young traveler. Will you follow the path of the lantern?" Jonah hesitated, then nodded. The path ahead was uncertain, but the light, his light, was enough to guide him forward. "You're not alone in this journey," the Lantern Wanderer continued. "There are others scattered across this broken world, carrying their own lights, their own hopes. Together we can rebuild what was lost." Jonah's heart stirred at the thought. He wasn't just searching for a place or for answers. He was part of something larger. The stories he had heard in Vault 119 had been the spark, but now he understood that the journey itself was the flame that would light the future. The Wanderer handed Jonah their lantern, passing on the symbol of their journey. Jonah took it with reverence, the soft glow lighting up his face. The moment was both humbling and empowering, and he realized that the lantern's light was not just a beacon. It was a responsibility to carry the hope of a world that could one day be whole again. A responsibility to carry the hope of a world that could one day be whole again. As the two of them stood amidst the ruins, a new purpose blossomed within Jonah's chest. He wasn't just a wanderer anymore. He was a guide. With the lantern in his hand, he would lead others out of the darkness, just as the wanderer had once done for him. The wasteland was still harsh and unforgiving, but now Jonah knew he could face it with a renewed strength. The lantern wanderer took a step back, their presence almost fading into the night. "Your journey has just begun, Jonah," they said softly, their voice almost a whisper in the wind. "The lantern's glow will guide you, but it's your heart that will lead you to the truth." With that, the wanderer turned and began walking into the distance, their lantern's light slowly disappearing into the vast, dark horizon. Jonah watched them go, knowing that the path before him was now clearer than ever. Jonah, lantern in hand, turned toward the road ahead. The wasteland stretched out before him, endless, unpredictable, but filled with potential. He felt the weight of the lantern's glow, not as a burden, but as a promise. The world may have been broken, but it wasn't beyond repair. Together with the light of their combined hope, they could rebuild. The stories of the past would fuel the journey, and the light would guide the way. As Jonah continued his journey, he met more survivors, some bitter, some hopeful, but all with their own story to tell. He shared his own tale of the lantern wanderer and the power of the light. With each person he met, the circle of hope grew wider. Jonah's lantern, once a simple symbol of his dreams, became a beacon for others, a sign that even in the harshest conditions, there was always room for hope. One day, while resting under the ruins of an old city bridge, Jonah looked up at the sky. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting rays of light across the land. It was the first time he had seen such a beautiful sight, and it reminded him of the stories he had heard in the vault. The world was healing, slowly but surely, and with his lantern lighting the way, Jonah knew that one day the wasteland would become a place where stories of hope and renewal would once again be told.